I'm DaJuan Johnson. Welcome to the Think Bigger Actors podcast, where I share with you different kinds of talks and coachings and conversations with actors and industry professionals on thinking bigger. I hope these conversations will help you on your path to success, because I believe success is an inside job that starts with your mindset and the thoughts you hold dominant in your mind. Change your thoughts and you change your world. Your path to thinking bigger begins now. Welcome to the Think Bigger Actors podcast. I'm your host, DaJuan Johnson, and welcome back. Welcome. I'm always just so happy to be back here. And, especially with today's guest, I have a freaking special guest, Brandi Nicole, for you. Talk about someone who has been in every freaking position in this business. It's her. And I just want to tell you this. We became friends because she reached out to me on Twitter over a decade ago and just asked me to read her script. Just asked me. We talk about this inside the episode. But cut to now, she's a staff writer on the Bosch spinoff Ballard. And listen, I'm just so excited to dive in that conversation. So that's what I got for you today. But first, I want to quickly, as I always do, thank you, my listeners, for making my very first episode back for season 6 out of this world. The numbers were great. What a warm freaking welcome. Thank you so much for posting on Instagram that I'm back, for sharing, for just going above and beyond. It really means the world to me. And thank you to everyone that stops me on the street and just says, thank you, DaJuan, for all that you do. I got stopped twice last week in very different places. One, I was at Issa Rae's new restaurant in Inglewood. It's called Somerville, for date night. And an actor came up to me and she said, I just want to thank you for all that you do for actors. And I was totally shocked about it. It was so awesome because I wasn't expecting it. And then the very next day, I was at F45, which is this new class. We can talk about that another time. This new fitness class, this circuit training class that I joined. And I believe the young man's name was Britt. Came up to me and said, just stopped me as well and said, thank you for your episodes. And we had a little sidebar chat about one of my episodes about the acting teacher that almost made me want to quit. And no, I'm not going to say the name. No, I didn't tell. I'm not going to tell you who that acting teacher was, but I just really want to say thank you for stopping me. I wish I could say that I'm expecting it, right? But I'm always caught off guard when one of you comes up to me and thanks me for this podcast and what I do with Think Bigger Coaching. Not because I'm being modest or humble. I am, but I still think of this as my little baby, and maybe me and my past acting class buddies are the only ones that listen to it. I know that's not true, but that's just the way I think about it. I think about as in I'm in your ear as you're at the, your fitness training or you're going on a walk or something like that. And it just warms my heart. That's all I'm trying to say. It just warms my heart. So never please stop coming up to me and telling me that this podcast matters, because I really love the podcast. I love having people on. I love talking about acting. I love really getting underneath it. I had this awesome talk with an actor just yesterday that I've been admiring for a long time. And he just said, I never get to talk about acting this way, because you do big interviews and stuff like that, but we never get to stop and ask, how do you pull apart a character? How do you get inside of, underneath a character, or what about reps and stuff like that? You don't really sometimes get to talk about that when you're out on a press tour or a circuit or something like that. And so I just really have a lot of fun with this podcast, and it's good to know that it's being received really well. So I want to tell you something. Here's a little bit of a secret. I don't have this whole season ready. I don't even have half of the season ready for this, this season. And normally by this time, I'm at least halfway, at the halfway point, and I'm just rolling out episodes. And that's kind of how most podcasters do. You're not going to be right on the heels of it. I have a bunch in the can. But this year is different. Now, because I'm committed to up-leveling. That's why it's different. I'm committed to getting new guests in here that I've admired. And, of course, I'm going to have some of my friends on. Of course, I always have that. But I'm swinging big, baby. And let me tell you, I've already been turned down by a lot of PR people. I've already been ghosted by a lot of people who are not even responding back. But that's okay, because I know how this works. This little independent podcast will be a hidden gem. And then all of a sudden, it won't be. It won't be. I think about it like the acting career, right? Like how, everybody says, keep doing the work and then they will find you. Keep doing it over and over again. Like it's really, really, really like that. People will be reaching out to me to be on this podcast. That is what I am manifesting. That is what I'm manifesting for me, for the Think Bigger Actors podcast, because I love doing it so much. Same thing I manifest for my career. There comes this point where, like, if you guys, anybody watches The White Lotus, I can't remember her name, the young woman that was with Walton Goggins, and she's popped and people have been talking about her. I was with a rep and a rep was saying, that's one of those people where when you see that they pop, everybody wants to rep that person. So then the big people start coming for her and things like that. That's the way I'm looking at this podcast. It'll be one of those things that'll just be out there tugging along and then it will pop. It'll be that. So, but until then, if there is a topic or a person you want on the show, send me an email at info@thinkbiggercoaching.com or DM me on Instagram and let me know. Or maybe if you have a connection with an actor you'd like to share with me and you want to get them on the show, let me know that too, because, we can definitely get them on the show and cut some corners here. All right. Last but not least, let me say, by the time this airs, we will be getting ready to have our final vote on our new commercial contract. And I just want to tell you, I have been in the weeds with that. I want to make sure I get on an info session to make sure I'm making the best educated vote there for this. So I'm not going to be here telling you which way to vote or go either way. That's something I want to make sure I'm just bringing it to the forefront of your awareness that we are voting on commercial contracts. And like Canada's been iced out of commercial contracts for a bit here. I want to make sure that we don't get iced out. I want to make sure that we are still doing our due diligence and we are voting. So that's May 21st at 5 p.m. I know I said last but least before, but I'm going to say last but least now. I know I said I wasn't going to turn this into a political podcast. And I mean it. I mean it, gosh darn it. But I did tell you I would get it political sometimes. The talk in our town has been on tariffs, and our president is talking about putting an entertainment industry tariff on there. And you know what? I don't want to cover this. I don't want to talk about this. I think incentives are the way to go. I think that's what we need, not tariffs on the industry. So why don't we just chalk this story up to something to watch? And then we will come back to it, and I can keep my word to you and not be in a political podcast yet. But I do want to talk about tariffs. I do want to talk about this. I do. But I'm not going to do it right now. All right, let's get to the next part of this. Okay, as I said, we have Brandi Nicole on this episode. And let me tell you, this episode is a whole word. I sat down with my longtime friend Brandi and Powerhouse creator, and we went in from questioning her own success to building a career outside of Los Angeles. Brandi gets real about what it means to tell stories that matter, even when the industry is trying to put you in a box. And we talk about her journey from actor to producer to staff TV writer, like I said, on the new Bosch spinoff Ballard that's coming up this summer, the behind the scenes of her short film Muted. It was a game changer for me and inspired me on it. And the truth about why that job to job idea of success is one of the biggest myths in our industry. Oh my gosh, why didn't Brandi and I have this conversation a long time ago before I went to my major depression when I finished Bosch? Plus, how stillness books the job. She talks about that, and the reminder we all need: you're not starting over. You're starting from experience. You're going to want to stick around for the D12 shot at the end of this episode where I bring it all together. But right now, go. Let's get to the episode. Brandi Nicole, I am so excited that you, got the memo about Pink today, right? Like you got the...
I love it.
Thank you so much for being here. I am giggly about giddy, I should say, about having you on the podcast today because I have so many great questions I want to talk to you about, just like so much. And I know how much you are just like an open book. So let's dive in. First of all, you're doing well. You're looking good.
I am. Yeah, I'm getting over just not being under the weather, and it feels good to feel good.
Yeah, feels good. That's a word. It feels good to feel good. And sometimes you
Yeah.
don't know unless you've been down. Like you're like, gosh, I
Mhm.
really, really love my health. You know?
That you listen, as cliche as it is, truly our health, our physical, emotional, mental well-being, there you cannot put a price on that. And when it has been rocked in some ways, like it has for me in the past couple of years, like when you do feel good, you're just like, oh, I thank you. This is great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, you know, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in because that's the way
Okay.
I do. And so I'm gonna start with a hard hitting question, and I'm just gonna ask,
Okay.
and then we'll lighten up as soon as we get past this.
Okay.
As soon as we
Okay.
get past this, I don't know what this is. I just wrote it down. It came to me when I was like coming to questions. And would you call yourself successful in the industry right now? The nerve, people. The nerve.
Ooh, okay. Oh yeah, you started there. Okay. Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question because I think what I would have answered at the top of this year is different than what I would answer now. I think
Mhm.
at the top of the year I would have said absolutely not. And um and now it is different. Now I am so thankful for the things that I've gotten to do, many of the things that I've created myself, but with a team, with people who have empowered me. But I'm so thankful for what I've already been able to do. And I've realized that yeah, I am successful. I am living my dream, and it just doesn't look the way that I thought it would look. But when I reflect on what I've gotten to do, what I'm still being able to do, and sort of the life that I'm creating as an artist, um, yeah, there were days where I prayed to be in the position that I'm in now. And so I think sometimes well, I can't say I have to remember that even as I'm going for the next goal, that like it took a lot to get here, and I'm appreciative of where I am now.
Yeah. So you said at the beginning of the year, absolutely not. What's taking you from absolutely not 10 months later saying, I mean, everything can change in a day, but like, but from going
Yeah.
absolutely not to like, yeah, you know, what's the big change there?
At the beginning of the year, I was wrapping up being a writer on a show, being staffed on a show that I'm very grateful to be on. But it's a show that I had to repeat a level. As a TV writer, you work in levels, and the only way for me to get this job, even after lots of negotiations with my lawyer, manager, all of that, was for me to repeat a level, the staff writer level, and I'm glad that I accepted it because I've formed some really wonderful relationships with my coworkers. But at the end of that job, not having another job lined up to get me to the point where I felt like, okay, I repeated this level, so now the next job has to come where I skip that level so I can be on the level I'm supposed to be at. And I was in LA at the time. Right now, I'm home in Memphis.
Mhm.
And so, and I remember I had to buy a mattress because I was staying with a friend whose mattress was not good for my back. And I felt like, okay, if I'm spending $800 on a mattress, that means I'm putting roots back down in LA again. And so the next job has to come. And it didn't. And then I knew I had to go home. And it just felt like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Is this it? I really had, I started feeling like this is like I'm just treading water. And what's happened over the last few months, really just seeing so many of my friends leave LA, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And so many people struggling right now and just trying to figure out their place in this industry. I've just really done I, I've really gone back to what brought me to this in the first place, which is that I love telling stories in lots of different ways. And going back to the core of that, I guess has really just helped me to like realize that like I have no control over what level I'm at, or I just have no control over any of those things. What I have control over is the work that I put into my craft, and what I'm trying to say with the stories that I'm trying to say. And then whatever happens as a result of the efforts that I put is out of my hands. And finally getting to that point and just like getting back in class and being around people who here in Memphis, TV writers, there's like 5 of us here. That's it. And I'm not, that's not an exaggeration. And so it's just brought me back to why. It's brought me back to my why. That's what it is. And bringing me back to my why has helped me to realize that, like, girl, you've done a lot of things. You need to get it together. You need to change this mindset of yours.
Yeah. You know what? I think there's so much wonderfulness there to unpack, but two things really stood out to me. And it's about job succession. And I think the lie in our industry is that we are going to go from show to show to show to show, whether that's an actor, whether that's a producer, whether that's a writer, whether that is crew. Like, that is the thing. And if we do not have job succession, because we're thinking about this like a corporate world, right? We're thinking about it. Then all of a sudden what happens is we feel like, girl, what are you doing with your life? I'm waiting water, or what? We're there in that space. And I've told here on my podcast many times before the deep depression that I went into after Bosch ended. And because what happened was that was my identity for 7-8 years, and it ended, and I thought I was supposed to go immediately to another show. And when that didn't happen, when that 3-6 year time, part of it, never mind, we were in a pandemic. We were in a global pandemic. So logically, my brain would have been like, we're in a global pandemic. You got to give yourself a little bit of time, but it doesn't even matter because of what we hear for job succession or what people do. I don't even know if it's what we hear people do. It's what we perceive people are doing.
Yes, it is perception. And so for me, a part of changing that, because perception and identity kind of like go hand in hand, I've had to really kind of curate what I am taking in, with my eyes and my ears on both social media, YouTube, TikTok, the podcast that I'm listening to. And what I mean by that is, for me, I've really had to like find things that are not celebrity driven, and that are artist driven. And not to say that celebrities can't be artists, but what I mean is that information about people who are just focused on the craft and not the premiere, the screening, the trappings of things that are great, that I've experienced some of that, and it's lovely. But I've just really had to focus on just who is talking right now, just about training and about mindset and about and about your craft. That's helping me right now, just to sort of stay anchored.
I love that. I think I just want to keep saying that to people. And that's why I share it so freely, that deep. I was in a dark place after that, because it was really, I couldn't, nobody taught me how to grieve an 8-year role, right? Nobody taught me that, that while I'm in Whole Foods, people are going to be yelling, "Detective," but I'm over here feeling like I don't have a job, after that. It's a really big thing. But I also just looked at, like, Titus, let's just say. Titus went from show. Titus has been at this for like 40 years. And if you talk to Titus, he's just like, no, this wasn't always my world. So I always say perception on that. And, I want to make sure I point that out, that job succession, I believe in this industry, is a lie, or it's down to maybe like 0.05% of the people. Everybody's, what are they doing after that? But the other thing that I thought that was really interesting that you said is just that, remember back in the day, leaving LA was taboo. It meant career, like, I don't want to use the word, just career downfall. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And now what we know, what we probably haven't caught up with in the mindset is, it's not. Like, if you leave LA, you can still have a viable, awesome career. And, and still in roots in New York or LA or one of the bigger cities and stuff like that, you can still do everything you want to do from Memphis. But I thought it was very interesting how you said, I was watching people leave, and I was like, that's so interesting, because I have thought about it.
Well, so, and I'm glad you bring this up, because I have friends in both camps, meaning I have friends who left kicking and screaming because they really didn't want to go, but financially, housing, they had to. Then I've had friends who embrace leaving, who, like a filmmaker friend of mine who has moved to Detroit very happily, and is setting up camp there.
Yeah.
Friends who, yes, have gone to Atlanta and New York, but even friends who've like gone to Austin or gone to Florida or gone to wherever, and are happy. So obviously I left LA originally in 2016.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was back last year just for a job, but I haven't moved back to LA like for real since 2016. And there was a time where I thought I was going to, and even early at the top of this year, I really thought. And gosh, just with the way the world is going and all that, I have to say I'm very thankful that I live in a place where rent is not burdensome for me comparatively, compared to my friends. So which for me then gives me the space to create because I don't have to worry about that.
That's truth, by the way. If you're
Yeah.
always worried about, I tell people that if you're always worried about where your next meal is going to come or where your rent's going to come or how do you get those things done, like it doesn't, so when I used to bartend and people was like, when do I quit? I was like, you quit when that is stable, like, because it
Yes.
gives you the creative, the muse can come down. But if you are
Yep.
like worried about that, we don't, I never subscribe to the starving artist thing because I love
Yeah.
steak.
Listen, exactly. I love eating out. Absolutely. I want to do it often. So yeah.
Hey, DaJuan here. Ever feel stuck in that in-between actor phase? I got something coming up for you. Just stick around and I'll drop the details in a bit. All right. See, that's a great question. I'm glad I asked that question off the bat. We're gonna rewind it back till about early 2000s or something like that. Maybe I would say
Okay.
2010, 2014, or I don't know, somewhere in there. Tell everybody how we met because I think this is like the story of like how am I sitting here with you 15 years later? Like literally.
15 years like geez.
Maybe longer,
Yeah.
by the way. I would say
Yeah.
it's 20.
Yeah, because I moved to so I am originally from California, but went to Vegas for high school,
Mhm.
Texas for college, moved back to LA as an adult in 2009.
Mhm.
And I started following you on Twitter.
Mhm.
At that time I had a blog called Adventures of an Actress where I was just like detailing my journey. I was following you and you had talked a lot about you were tweeting, it was Twitter back then, about teaching these courses, and I thought they were amazing. But I was like, my funds, I can't quite do it. So I took another acting class, who won't be named,
Mhm.
and that teacher was nice, but I did not really learn anything. And I remember you being like, if you come over here, and I was like, I'm gonna do it, fine. And I did, and I took that boot camp, and I got to meet you in person, even though I'd already quote unquote known you because of Twitter, and I think you had read maybe
I'm gonna
a couple of
pause her.
posts on my blog.
Pause
Oh, go
her.
ahead.
I'm gonna pause her, everybody, because she skipped the most vital part of us meeting. So
Oh my gosh,
before
what was
this,
that?
I'm gonna tell this. So before this, in 20, when was Diary of a Wedding Planner? What year?
Oh shoot,
Yes. What year?
2010, because I came out in
So
2009, so 2010.
yes. So we met back when Twitter started in 2008 or 2010. And so
Oh,
I was booking back then. I was on shows. I was talking about it. And there was this woman that just started following, that just started interacting with me. And what Brandi said to me randomly out of nowhere was, DaJuan, would you read my script? And you sent me Diary, and I was like, yeah, I'll read your script. Like, I don't know, like, and so that's how I got special thanks, by the way, in it, right? And so back in 2010, let's say 2010 or 28, 20,
yeah.
somewhere around there, you were one of those people that we met on Twitter, and we just started talking, and you just started sending me stuff, and you were like, would you read this? I was like, yeah, I'll read this. And I remember, I think I read Muted, by the way, before I read
You
a couple of
probably
things.
did.
I read a couple of
The
things.
way I forgot about that, and
Yes,
you are
this is
absolutely
important.
right. Wow. Yeah.
So you skipped to like when we were in person, but that part was like on its way
That
because
was the lead up.
yeah. And so, like,
Yeah.
for me, the important part of that is everybody, I didn't have anything to gain from this. You didn't have anything. Like, we were just exchanging
Yeah.
ideas. And from my mind, I figured you're like, there's this guy who's in, Los Angeles. I see him working. Let's
Yep.
see if we can exchange some things. And I was like, yes, like,
Yeah.
let's do that. And I think this is important. And I wanted to earmark this, everybody, because this is how Brandi operates. And when we get into Muted or we get into other stuff, it's kind of just like, I don't know these people, but I'm gonna ask. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that you do very well is you just like, what's the worst they can say is no. And
Right.
so I
Yep.
think so we got to go back to 2008 to make sure we tell this
Yeah.
right. And I remember reading that. I feel like I read a horror or something of yours as well. Maybe it was like but that was like, because there was a couple of, anyway. And I was like, yeah, I'll read
Yeah,
it.
you have read a few different scripts of mine. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just because there was nothing involved for me. I was like, yeah, you asked, thank you, because people stop asking me to do stuff. I stopped getting asked to be in shorts. I stopped getting asked to read stuff. By the way, don't anybody send me their stuff. Like, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
that's true. But that is true because you know what? Yeah, I'm so glad you refreshed my memory of that because I do remember you being a person on Twitter who was giving knowledge in a way that was not snarky or condescending. Um, and there's a lot of that on Twitter, unfortunately. There are people who will say stuff, but they say it in a way like, duh, you should know this. And you weren't doing that. You were doing it in a generous way. And so that's why I felt comfortable, like, I'm going to at least ask. And if he says no, he says no. But you didn't say no. And yeah, gosh, wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then when with the other part of that is I would say, as you wanted to do acting in person. I was working at a studio and we did meet in person. And, that
Yeah.
part is definitely history. But I think the beginning part of it was always something in my mind of like just reaching out or just being your best self on what do you call it, Twitter or social media. And I felt like that was just genuine. You had a diary of a wedding planner. Am I saying that right? I'll make sure because I don't know.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. That was the
That's how
first.
far we went back.
Oh, that's so funny.
And
Because
so,
that's a blast from the past. That was the very first thing that I created and got me into the union because I did the new media contract and half-heartedly, basically myself and a few friends, and we made it. And oh wow, yeah.
I mean, I have a little bone to pick you about that because I mean, you had me read it, but you never asked me to be in it. But you know what?
Okay.
Never mind, y'all. You know what? That was 2 decades ago, y'all. I am past it. I am past it. I'm telling you all. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I have a podcast.
Though I will say, I did ask you. We did a table read when my then agents, if you remember, of Muted when I turned it into a feature. So and we and Chandra Wilson was there and everyone was there, and I just remember that was a fun moment. All my friends.
Yeah. It's funny because you talk about Muted and everybody doesn't know about Muted. And I'll let you talk about that because I tell your story of Muted all the time. And, again, I don't know how much of that because we're friends and behind the closed doors. I don't know how much of that I can share, but I'll just prompt you with, I tell how you went out to certain people who were at the beginning of their directing career. And again, if you don't want to say it, don't have to. At the beginning of their directing career, and everybody's like, "Well, how did she get that person?" And I was like,
no, you can say it. Yeah.
Okay. I don't make sure. I don't want to say any names, but I remember at the beginning of Muted, and again, you talk about it was like when you went out to Regina King, and and it was like what, and I was like Regina King, and you just like went out with this script and talked to their team, and she was in play for a little bit, before she was in play, and I was like Regina King, you know what I mean? So tell us about Muted. Tell us the story about that because there's a lot of wonderful things that I think again. You just putting yourself out there. And I hope you're starting to like, see yourself the way I'm seeing you and the way I made this story.
Thank you. So Muted is a short film. Originally, it's a short film about a missing child of color, a Black girl who is 15, 16. She goes missing and how her family struggles to get the support of both law enforcement to take it seriously, and then the media to actually like showcase this. And I know we've seen more and more of these stories lately, but when we made this back in 2012, it really wasn't a lot of that. So we made it as a short film, but this was me and my producing partner, Tara Timijevic. So I wrote it, got with Tara to help me produce it, which is always the very first tip I give anyone who's producing for the first time is find a partner, find somebody who's going to be as invested as you are. Unless you're rich and can literally lose whatever kind of money, but for the rest of us, find somebody who, when things kind of get hard, you can lean on them, they can lean on you. So Tara came on board as a producer, and with her and I producing it together, neither one of us wanted to direct, so we started looking for directors, and and because we were still very like green, we didn't have this feeling of like people were out of reach. It just felt like, no, don't get me wrong, we were never obnoxious or felt entitled or anything like that. But we basically, and I have to credit Tara with really hammering this of like, let's just try. Let's just try. And because we knew our script was actually trying to say something, we felt like if we can find a director who believes in what this story is trying to say, then it's a win for us, but then it could potentially be a win for them. So how do we make it a win for them? Well, then we need to target a director who is still like trying to build up their directing portfolio. And so they're real. And so that's how like we came up with a list of names, and we had read somewhere that or heard somewhere that Regina King like wanted to start going into directing. And so we were like, well, she is a Black woman and this is a Black story, and she wants to go. She's been in this industry, so obviously we know that she has like some storytelling instincts. Let's just see. And literally Tara went on IMDb Pro, looked up these different people's their reps, and started making phone calls. And she absolutely got people who were like, who are you? What? Why? A short. And but Regina King's agent, who right now I can't think of who they are, but I remember it's someone big time, and liked her moxie, liked the fact that she was audacious enough to call and was willing to read the script, passed it along. She liked it, and we actually ended up having, I'll never forget, we had like lunch, drinks, something in the Silver Lake, and it was like way like deep in Silver Lake. And at the time, Tara lived on the west side, I lived in Inglewood, so neither one of us had ever even been in this little area, but it was a really cute restaurant. And I remember by the end of our little meal, she was like, I'm in. And we were just like, oh my God. And then of course Hollywood, like it seemed like the next week Regina was like popping on everything, where like we had tapped her right where she was having a little bit of a lull, and then she just went on a string of booking A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then it just became very clear after about maybe 6 months of us trying to like navigate and kind of, because she was lovely. But at some point it was just like, we're trying to tell this story, and it is a short, so I know we have to sort of squeeze it in, but if we keep waiting, we may never make this. So we had to walk away and find somebody who was more on our level in terms of being available to tell the story. But yeah, it was a good like eye opener of like, people are, you can sometimes you just have to go for it. Sometimes you just have to go for it and then trust that the right story will fall into the right hands at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that Regina King story. And I think we have another one. I can't remember her name, who was on True Blood at the time, the Black woman on True Blood.
Yes.
You get like, this is my job. You tell me. And what's her name again?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It starts with an A. Adina.
Yeah, it's
right.
Adina. I think her last name is Porter. I believe it's Adina Porter.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm wondering if she's any relation to Billy. But yes, she was originally going to portray the mother.
Mm-hmm.
She's a wonderful actress. And and then we got, as we were getting closer and closer, we got a call that she had lost her husband very unexpectedly. And so at that point, our heart just sort of went out to her. And it was one of those things where she was just putting down all work for a while, understandably so. And so it was one of those moments where we were like, okay, back to square one. What do we do? And we were just going to go back to like, okay, we'll put out a breakdown on Actors Access, because like, what do we do? Things are in place. And our director then at the time had a relationship with the casting director, and she made a list, and at the top of the list was Chandra Wilson. And I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan, so I was just like, again, especially because I knew how much Grey's Anatomy filmed. Like, they are crazily always working. I thought that was
like
pie in the
15-hour
sky.
days. Like
15-hour days, and it's like seriously 10 months out of a year. So,
yes.
Yeah, but she read it and she said yes, and she did it, and she did it for the amount that we offered, which was insane, which was peanuts, which is, I'm sure, her gas money. But again, it was a role that, it was a different side of her that we didn't all, at that time anyway, hadn't got to see. And she was going to be this story was really going to center around her as this mother trying to fight for her daughter. And so she said yes. And not only did she say yes, but she was the easiest person to work with on set, the easiest person to work with on set. And just showed me, like, this is how, if I ever get the chance to be at that level, that is how you should be. That when someone comes to you hoping that, you will say yes to their baby, that when you step into those shoes, you give it the same level of care and respect that you give your job that's paying you millions, because that's absolutely what she did. And it was a gift to us and for everything.
Well, she did a great job in it. I will say that sometimes she didn't need the money, right? Maybe. We don't know her. I don't know her situation.
Right. Sure. Right? Yes.
But like, from my perception, you don't need the money. So she went in there because she really believed in the project. You know what I mean? It's like, great, I can go make this, like you saying, money on Grey's, but I get to now I have, I can put my attention on different things that I really just want to do, So I think that's really great. And I think it's also like a testament to you all of like, we went back to, we want to get this project made. You went through Regina, you went through Adina, you went through some iterations of that, and you still didn't stop. Some people out there, some of us, you hit that first roadblock, and then all of a sudden you're just like, well, it's not meant to be. Whoa. Hold up.
Yep. Yeah. Listen, pump the brakes if you need to. Regroup if you need to. Take a break. Take a breather. Sometimes you do have to put projects away for a little bit. But again, that's where having a partner, having a team that also believes in the story helps, so that when you do hit those slumps, you can be reminded that, like, we're doing this for a reason. We got to see it through.
Yeah. Hey, it's DaJuan, and I want to talk to you actor to actor. If you've been grinding, auditioning, taping, and still wondering when it's finally going to click, I created something for you. It's called the Booked and Busy Actors Retreat, and it's happening August 22nd through August 24th right here in Los Angeles. And this isn't just another event, it's a reset. 3 days in person here in Los Angeles. And the room, it's going to be filled with casting directors, agents, working series regulars, and actors like you who are done playing small. You could be one of the actors who gets their self-tapes reviewed live. You could be one of the actors sitting across from reps in a mock meeting. And no matter what, you'll be creating, connecting, and walking away with a roadmap that's built around the work you put in that weekend. No more DMs into the void. No more wondering if they saw your tape. No more feeling like you're doing this all alone. And let me tell you, last year, actors called this retreat transformational, generous, the most real actor experience they ever attended. And this year, we're going to go even deeper. We'll work on mindset, sharpening your craft, and making sure that you walk back into this industry, you do it with confidence, clarity, and a circle that has your back. This is where you stop waiting to be picked and start showing up all like you already booked it. So go to www.bookedandbusyactorsretreat.com to claim your seat. Again, that's www.bookedandbusyactorsretreat.com. Seats are intentionally limited, so if this sounds like your next move, trust that feeling. I'll see you there. So, all of the things that you've done, if I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking about Diary, I'm thinking about Aloha, I'm thinking about Aloha was yours, right? Right? Make sure. Sorry, my hand. Aloha, I'm thinking, Muted. I'm thinking about these things. You have always acted in them. And if I guess I want to know your trajectory. You came out to Los Angeles to be an actress, and then you decided to create, and then you decided to go back to writing or get into writing. Like, what's been that? Because I have here on my paper, I put in actress, writer, producer, writer, actress, as we're going.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. So originally I thought I was first going to go to New York to do Broadway. And then I got pregnant my senior year of college, and I didn't have any family in New York. So then it was like, okay, then I'm going to LA to act there because I have family in California. And so came out to be an actor. And then the auditions that I was getting, and I want to be very careful on how I word this, because it's not that because no part is too small or no part is meaningless. Every part matters. What I was having to weigh was the auditions that I'm getting is taking time away from my kids. I had two kids at the time. What is this worth it? And the quality of the auditions that I was getting at the time was not worth it for me. So I decided to start creating because I wanted things that were more substantial. And I really I found that I really loved the creative process. I loved being able to take something from its inception and build it out and find the right pieces of the puzzle to make it. And then when you're finding people, then they, like with Tara, with making those phone calls, they hopefully elevate your vision so that you're now starting to imagine things that you would not have imagined on your own. And it's actually starting to become a reality, because it is something about like getting a team and like setting a date where it's like, oh no, this is happening. This is happening. So it started off being actor, and then it was like a writer, but only if I'm writing things that I can act in, to then where I'm at now, where it's like, I mean, I still absolutely love acting. But if I can get paid to write, then whether I'm in it or not, I'm happy to get paid to write. I did a couple of stints of directing, and I've learned that, like, even though I enjoyed that was with Aloha and then with Spin, I enjoyed it. But what I've learned about directing is when you're directing, really everything else has to go. It's not like with writing and acting. Like with acting, you can be working on his character, but also doing other things. With writing, I can be revising a script, starting a new script, polishing a script. I can be in different stages. And with directing, it is so all encompassing because you are where the buck stops. And also because I don't always see things visually, that's not my first go-to. My first go-to is I think in words. I think in words and in feelings and in emotion. And so I've just found that really writing, acting, producing is really where I want to spend my time.
That's so interesting. Directing, the way you put it just there at the end. I don't think of visually in a lot of other places, but in directing, I can kind of just see what I want. I can kind of and it's very I've never put it that clear, but they were like, "What do you want?" I was like, "I don't know the language on this. I just know I want a crane to come in and do this, and I want it to. I know what I can. I knew the shot I wanted, but and the emotion, all that stuff was here, and I could always do that since college when I had to do my directing project.
That's great. And I always struggled. When I was I was in a performing arts high school, and then I was a theater major in college. And every time senior years of both, where we had to do like a directing thing, I always struggled with that. And it's because I would always be like, I know how I want this to feel. I know what I want to say, and I know how I want this to feel. But trying to figure out the shot was always hard for me. And I think too, part of it was the last film that I had, I co-directed, which was a Spin, and I enjoyed that so much because there would be moments.
You enjoy partners. You enjoy partners.
Yeah, I do. There we go. I do. I enjoy partnership. I really do. I enjoy collaboration with people who, who you build a trust with. I get a lot of reward out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I directed my short film and I wrote. I don't know if I shared that with you, but I did that, and it was because I really wanted to direct episodic TV, and I was on a show that I thought I might do it with Bosch
Yes.
stuff, but
Yeah.
it just never came to fruition. But I am so thankful that Bosch let me shadow direct other directors, and I got to do that whole thing.
Yeah.
And here's what I always say about that, you all, is that I wish I had had the wherewithal to pull myself out of the acting role and just direct when I was there,
Mm.
because the
Hmm.
split focus, not for me, it was hard. I know Jason Bateman does it and other people do it, but for me, as
Yeah.
my first directing thing, I was really trying to like be there in that moment of acting, which I think I did well in, but also popping
Yeah.
out, and also directing. But thank God I had like a producer who was there with me who knew my vision so well that could still
Yeah.
see that. But it's just a very interesting dance. And I appreciate you saying that, because I think we all go into it as actors thinking we're creating vehicles for other things, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
I want to say
Yeah.
that vehicle, the first time you create it, it might be okay to be in the passenger seat. The first time you
Absolutely.
create the vehicle, it might be okay to sit in the back seat, for
Yeah.
that, and just create it and then get back into the driver's seat of it all is
Well, see, sorry, let me interrupt you because it's so interesting the way you even described that. Because for some people, the driver's seat is the director, and then for some of us as actors, it does feel like, oh, but the driver's seat for me is right there. You
that's
know what I
true.
mean?
That's true.
So
Yeah.
so it's but I 100% agree with you now. Having done that, is like it is such a split focus, and if you are going to split that focus, you absolutely need a second set of eyes that knows exactly what you're going for to be
Mm.
able to help you get it, because you still got to make your day. You don't have a lot of
Mhm.
time, so yeah.
Yes. How did you become, because I didn't see this happening. I didn't see it
Okay.
happening. How did you become a writer for TV, right? Because there was like Your Honor was in there. There was like, then are we allowed to say the B
Mhm.
word? Like,
Yep.
yet we
Yeah.
can say Ballard.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's fine now.
I don't know where I don't know where it is. You all. That's the problem. You all. I bring on my friends to this podcast, and there's so much information that we talk behind closed doors, and I don't want to say
Hmm.
anything. I'm always respectful of that, but I didn't see. Not that it blew. Like, wow, that's odd. I just knew you were producing. I knew you were acting,
Yeah.
and then I guess you were writing, of course, all the stuff you're putting. I knew that, but I didn't see
Yeah.
it coming for television and film. And now that I say that out loud, I wonder if I'm lying, because you had a really good support system with Elaine, Bash, and you all were all there, and they were all going in that direction, and maybe you were going in that direction too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, but it did come a little later, because I remember when we did Muted, both me and Tara, we never forget, because we laugh at this now, how at that time we were like, well, yeah, we like writing, but like maybe we'll just write features, because can you imagine being staff? That means you can't go on auditions because you're in the room all day. Never, never. Oh, cut to years later, and we were like, no, please stop us now. Um, so yeah, so after a little bit after Muted, I tried my hand at specking a show, and that show was Transparent. Because I love that it was a half hour, but it was a dramedy, and there was equal parts drama to the comedy. And I just really, and it was a show that on the surface I have no connection to. This family was so different in every way from me and mine, and yet I was so drawn to it that's why I wanted to spec it, because I was like, I don't have any life experience with any of this, but wow, it's fascinating. So I spec that show,
Hold on, real quick.
and
Tell people what spec is, because they might not know what spec is. So, real
oh,
quick.
yes,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so to spec a show basically means that you are writing an episode of a TV show that you are not on the staff for. You're not being paid to do this. You're writing it. Really, writing on spec of anything means you're doing it for free. No one has commissioned you to do this. But when someone says, I wrote a spec of, that means they wrote an episode of that show with those characters, but it's your own creation.
Great.
So I did that. Thank you. And I submitted it to the networks for their TV writing programs. Did not get in, but that was my first time being like realizing that, like, oh, I could potentially do this. And I actually love TV more than film, just in terms of like I grew up on it and I watched so much of it. So let me sort of try my hand at it. And then from there I got into some TV writing classes, And then after taking the TV writing classes, I applied again. And that time I got in. I got into the HBO Writers Program. And then that's what sort of laid the groundwork for like, okay, I'm really going to try to make a career out of this.
Do you know Jude Wing by any chance?
Not personally, no, but I know, I want to say they were either the year before or after me, because I believe because with the HBO program, it's every other year. It's either a focus on writing and directing. Right. I think they were right before me. So I definitely heard the name, and I know that they're very successful. Like I know they're always working. So
yeah. Wondered. That is really great. So you took classes after and then really trying to hone in on it, right? It sounds like writing, and then made a career. Well, went into one of the programs. By the way, you all, if you don't know that there are directing programs out there are writing programs out there. I don't know if they have showrunner programs or anything, but the directors and writers.
Well, they do once you're in the guild. Once you're in the guild, they have a showrunner training program. Yeah, they do.
So it's just like, if you are thinking to yourself, like, how do I even venture into this? It's there. And I'll just say this as a side note. I have thought many of time, if I did not have Think Bigger coaching, that I would be a whole different director right now. Because it is such I have to choose a lane, and that lane right now is whatever gives me more freedom with my kids. You know what I mean? And so I'm on a baseball field 5 days a week. I mean, actually 7 days, because the weekends too. But like, we are either, practicing Monday through Friday with them, and then we have tournaments on the weekends. And so for me, it is very important to be there, with these individuals. I got them for 5 more years. You know what I mean? Like, and before and so for me, I still think about it in the sense of, why are you not directing? Why have you not gone into all this other stuff? It's because I just, honestly, I want maximum time with my moody teenager who hates me.
Listen, I'm actually glad that you just said that, because that brings up, I had a friend of mine who reached out to me maybe a month ago, and wanted me to submit for their show while they wait to hear if it gets the next season, and it's a successful show. And like right now, with the way the industry is, normally that would make you jump for joy. But the first question I asked was, how long is the room? It's a 20-week room. And is it in LA? It is. So I had to say no, and I cried. But I because my middle son is a junior, and I've got 2 more years with him. And I tried the back and forth thing with my last show, and that was really, really hard. I got to have a taste of what it's like to be bi-coastal over that year, and for me, I've got to wait to try that again after he's gone. So.
Yeah, it is. And, we just have to, for everybody, like, there isn't a blanket statement on that, right? So if somebody was like, great, we're going to pay you $50,000 to go to Lithuania, to shoot this, like, you're like, well, he does have to go to college. But I just take a lot of that, very, 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 I just take it case by case. And, I find other ways to figure out how can I put my toe in directing. So I really want to do that. That's just one of my things that I really have always wanted to do. And I think I'm good at it. I think, to be able to see it all overview, and then, was just like gorgeous for me. And it's something producing. I hate it, y'all.
Really?
Do not.
The administrative aspect, or the what?
Definitely the administrative. I like all of it. It just was not my jam. I didn't like it because I guess I have to be in such, type A control all the time. Like, that part of it for me just didn't work, spreadsheets, numbers, making sure like all that.
And that, I love that. But it also made, like, diary wedding planners. I used to be a wedding planner, but producing is just, it's the same thing as producing a wedding, producing a film. I love seeing, like, I even like changing the numbers in the budget and seeing how things, I enjoy it, but it is a grind. So again, I have now produced 2 projects that I neither acted or wrote. And I do those few and far between, and really only for friends, because there has to be something else like keeping me there, because it's all encompassing.
Yeah. And everybody, I want to just say that Brandi did bring me on for something a couple of years ago, where she was just like, "Can you come do this to one?" And I was like, "Is this a friend thing? Are you calling a friend card?" And she's like, "Yes." I was like, "I'll be there."
Yes, one of those things that I produced, and his role. I mean, and we can say it. It's on because it's on
Yeah.
the film festival tour. He is in The Burden,
Mhm.
and I'm so glad that he said yes because his role like is a key pivotal moment that is like the crux of what this film is about. And I just remember we were watching the dailies and we all got chills. And now
Mhm.
seeing it together, so many people who see it at film festivals comment on that part. So I am thankful that he said
Yeah, and you know what? And I want to say to everybody who's out there, like listening to this, is all. And I think you know that I think I'm not like a great actor. I think I am a good actor. I think I'm good. But one of the things that people don't want to be known for certain things, and I think that one of the things I did with Grey's Anatomy was I wanted to show that men of color can be emotional on screen and still be strong. Like that's what I
it.
wanted to bring. I wanted to say like all bets are off if my wife is on this bed, and like it's not about manhood at this moment. It's about this raw
Yeah,
humanity. And that was
yeah,
what I wanted to bring to that role. And I think, and I know, well, I shouldn't say no. I know a lot of people saw that, and everybody's called. I cry on like literally half the stuff that I go out on. People are like,
yeah.
just need the guy to like, we know he can get there. I think I can
Yep.
say it now. By the time this airs, it will already been out. I just did an episode of 911. And in the episode of 911, I am a father that, sons, again, this will be out for a while, so no problem. But my son goes through something and I have to get very, very emotional in a quick time. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking about this, you all, just me thinking from an actor's brain. I was like, gosh, I'm only in two scenes here. I'm only in two scenes here. Like, I wonder if they could have given this to somebody who's getting their first role, or somebody like it's short stuff. It's one big scene, and then it's
Yeah.
the scene and then when I was there on set, I was like, this is why they gave it to me, because they needed somebody they can trust to go from A to Z in a short amount of
And get
time
there.
and get there and move on. They don't have time to
Yeah.
like work this up and do all of that.
Hmm.
And that's why they paid me the big bucks for that.
Exactly. That's why they brought you in because they know. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you don't have time. Um, yeah, that was an issue with one of the shows that I've been on where I've been on as a writer, where sometimes not making the day because an actor couldn't do what needed to be done, and it affects morale. It certainly affects the budget. It affects a lot. So yeah.
Yeah. I had Tara on, by the way, and
I know. I remember.
she gave good talk, and I just want to say, I'm now being from that whole other side, because you've seen it from the writers' room, you've seen it from producing, you've seen it from trying your hat on with directing and everything like that. What
Yeah.
would you say to actors now that you maybe didn't know before? Like, what would you say to actors as they're trying to, audition or be in those rooms, or you've been in these spaces where you've seen big
Yeah.
people cast, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean, or not even cast but talked about, so like what could you share there in that world?
Yeah. The funny thing
Not the
was,
chuckle, y'all, not the
so
chuckle.
because so we in my last room we had a day where lunchtime one day where we were watching some of the tape, and I'm the only actor on my writing staff, and one of the things that they kept saying was like, why are so many people focused so much on on the business? Like they were closing the drawer and they're fiddling, getting out the silverware or whatever they were looking for. I think maybe she was looking for a screwdriver. So they were fiddling around getting the silverware. They were so focused on the blocking that it became a distraction, that at some point it was just like, we want to hear you and see you, and like the essence of this, your essence brings to the character. And so I'm not saying that you have to stand there and be still, but I will say the actors who practiced more stillness, they shone like the who they were as an actor. Really, it just it stood through. Unless you were the ones who, don't get me wrong, there were definitely some people who were able to do their business and still also. So yes, if you are at the point, because you've been training and you've been coaching and all that, where you can tie all that together, listen, chef's kiss. That is beautiful. Go for it. If you're not there yet and you still get an opportunity, throw that out. We can work on that. You will have a director to do all of that. And please let us see who you are as an actor.
It's so funny. I call it stillness, not stiffness. So it that's one of the things I coined, because it's okay to be still, because there's moments where I do have to find that screwdriver, but find it. And then the scene is not about the screwdriver or at some point it needs to stop and it needs to just be here. But
Yeah.
because what I know, and like people are like, but you just need to be in the moment. But also what a smart actor knows is, if my camera's over here, I'm gonna find that. It's like, and that's, you just start to know a lot of that stuff technically as well, as you're starting to really dive deep into these characters. That the humanity, of course, is really, really important. I think that's gold. It's really, really, really important. Tara would say something like that too. And she was like, when she was talking about being on those producer sessions or being on the back, she was like, why aren't people like the chemistry? Chemistry is important. Like when you're in these rooms and stuff. Like
it is. It is. Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, and the other thing too is, I mean, and I heard this before as an actor, but it's so true that we really are rooting for good every time a new tape, or you're hoping to see something that lights you up, even if it's not perfect for this role. You do remember the people who like stand out of like, oh, but I would love to work for them for whatever else. So
yeah. I love sharing this. I was on NCIS Hawaii, and I had been in a couple of times for them. I tapes in after tapes, and and it just wasn't. It didn't hit. And the last time that I booked NCIS Hawaii, I went in for a top of show guest star. Everybody, top of show guest star is like, you're gonna make like $10,000 for that episode. You could just like there for a lot more. You're doing a lot more. I did not book that one. And they sent me back a tape and the request, and they said, can he come in for this role? It was a one-day guest role. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'm going to go to Hawaii. Me and my like moment. I'm like, I don't care. I'll go to Hawaii. They must have been like me. And so I went to Hawaii, and I'll say the producer on set, that producer on set, pulled me aside in between takes and says, DaJuan, we've seen all your tapes that you've been sending, and we've loved all of them. And we thought to ourselves that we were going to hold you for when the right role came along that could recur. So here I am worried about this little $10,000. And this person was like, we want this person back again and again and again. So multiply that 10 times, that 3 or whatever. And I just remember thinking, how dare I get upset that I didn't understand the plan, that I didn't.
Yeah. Which then also, and I don't know if I told you this before, I might have, I'm not sure. But I know I told you that I threw out your name a few times in my last show. But I don't know if I ever told you that one of the things that we had got to a point where we really were thinking of bringing that character on. And I won't forget my showrunner being like, I really like what he does. And if I bring him on, I want it to be worthy of his time. And I was like, oh yeah. Cause you're just like, I just want, I want to work with my friends who I know do good work, even if it's a little here or there, I want to get them in. But she was also right. That was also right. And so you never know how people are valuing you and valuing what your worth is. And she literally said, I want it to be worthy of his time. I know the good work he does. Like, oh,
it's great. Right. No, it's I'll just say this, you all, and I can't say this. I'll tell Brandi afterwards, but I can't say the show I'm working on right now. But I went on to that show, and here's what I want to say. I'll start this just so everybody can just know the end of this. We have to be careful that a younger iteration of us isn't making decisions for our future. And at the moment, that a younger actor iteration or younger person or whatever is really taking the reins in that. And I say that because I walked onto this new set, and there were a couple people who I got to work with that I was so giddy with. And I told them in between takes, halfway through, once we got some good takes down, I was like, now I'm not crazy. I just want to let you know you were so great in X, Y, and Z. And they were like, oh. And then it was such this exchange of like moment. And then something crazy happened. 3 separate people walked up to me, the director included, and said, I just want to let you know you killed it on Bosch. And the other person said, the AD said, we're over here and we're such fanning out on what you did on Bosch. And and I was just like, oh, wait, I'm that person too.
I know. Isn't that? Yeah, that's it's so funny how we see ourselves and then sometimes we're confronted with how someone else sees us. Going back to the success thing, the success question from earlier of like, yeah, earlier this year was like, no, absolutely, I'm not. And then in meeting other writers who are currently where I used to be, and who, you know, resonated with some of the different shows that I've been on. Yeah, it's such a reminder of like, yes, this is the industry where you do always feel like you're trying to climb that next rung, but you cannot forget how far you have already climbed, and that there are people, you know, working their way up as well who are looking up to you and who have been inspired by the work you do. And it's just it's always like it kind of blows your mind when it happens and you're like, oh yeah, you're right, and I should be a lot more grateful because you know, we are in rare air, and that we have gotten to be paid, and in some cases quite nicely, to do this kind of work that a lot of people wish that they could do.
But because it is not a job succession, we are putting that back on ourselves, but we're forgetting, like, we've been paid a lot of money. Like, thank God, I've been in this house. This is my second house in Los Angeles, you all. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's because of a show that I was on for 8 years. Like, it's like, you know, you're on that. So I'm gonna land this plane here. I'm gonna do a little rapid fire with you because I got a couple questions I want to make sure I get in for you. Thinking back to your first self-written, self-produced short, which would have been a diary, right?
Diary, yeah.
Okay. What are some roadblocks you faced that in hindsight were things you shouldn't have let hold you up?
Oh,
so I think the question is if you are doing your first thing, like what shouldn't hold you up? I think that's really the question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is because it was my first one, I was a little too willing to let other people influence some of the decisions that I made. And, you know, instead of holding to the fact that, like, yes, I am new, but there's still a vision that I have, and I need to hold true to that. And that's what I would encourage. You know, it is wonderful to have a team and to take in the input from all of your team. It's just like getting notes as an actor, as a writer, in any sort of thing. You chew the meat, spit out the bones. There are some things that may be hard to hear because you know that they're right, and you're like, oh, I've got to change something. So that's one thing. But then there's some things where you hear it and you're like, I don't know, but the fear in you tells you to go ahead and do it anyway. And then when it doesn't work out, you're like, I knew I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, but because I was scared, I just went along with it. And so I would say to trust your gut, to trust your gut and find people who can affirm your gut, because you won't regret doing that. Yeah.
So once you started producing content, what were the light bulb moments that you wish you had known as an actor pounding the pavement?
Oh man. Number one, that who you are is enough, and that they are hiring you to bring your version of this thing. And that sometimes, even when they think that they know what they want, you can come in and do something wildly different, and that completely shifts the story. So rest in whoever you are, and let that your version of the character is who they want to see, not your depiction of someone else's version of that character.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that 120%. That's probably been one of the shifts. And I would add to that, understanding that just because you didn't book it doesn't mean your version wasn't right for you. Right?
Absolutely.
So we start to tweak because we're not booking. But just like we talked about a segment before this, y'all called it a segment. But a second before that was just like people don't know what people are thinking. We don't know if they're like, oh, I love that.
We don't.
And then you change your version.
And also that the person who gave the best performance is not always the one that's cast
It's
for
not.
lots of reasons. So sometimes you can still knock it out of the park and do everything, and there's nothing that you could have done to have not gotten that role, but they will still remember you.
Yeah. Yeah. Last one. How do you balance working on your own projects when you are hired on another?
That's a great question. And so it sort of, I kind of take it in waves. If I am on script, I'm not doing anything else for me personally because I'm on script. And so I guess I would say you got to prioritize your deadlines. So if this is feeding me, feeding my family, I've got to hit those deadlines first. Then once that is done and then I have the space, then that's when I can work in my things. And I do find that it's actually easier when I'm working on something else to then work on my stuff because there is this sort of I guess it's like the gym thing because you're in the gym, you're working, and it's so much easier than to just slide on your own stuff than when you take a month off and then you're trying to get back in the gym and your body is like, oh, what's happening? So that's how I do it.
How can everybody find you, Brandi? How can they find you? Because I mean, you're everywhere. You give you watch TV shows and then you give your own like real opinion on it online.
I do. Yes, I.
Wait, did you like Imprisoned?
I have not finished it, but I have liked it so far. And now that I see that I'm still going to finish it, but I saw that it was canceled. Yeah. But it was a little triggering because of my own personal relationship with my dad.
Oh, sorry.
So that's why I've been like watching it in spades.
Oh, okay.
But I have enjoyed it. So anyway, you can find me on mostly Instagram and TikTok, but Instagram the most. I'm on Instagram as Creatively Be. Twitter's Creatively Be as well when I wade on there. But I'm on TikTok as Fire Art and Joy. And so, yeah, Instagram or TikTok, please say hello.
I just want to say this so we have it documented that you inspire me. You inspire me. And I make sure that's been said and you keep doing. I see you out there. I see you going to have talks in Tennessee. You know what I mean? I see you doing it. You're like, just because I'm not here doesn't mean I'm going to give up or I just see you doing it. And I want to just say that I see you. So
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. Didn't I tell you this episode was so good? This is one of those ones that you want to go back and stop and listen to again and really just pick apart from whether it's networking, whether it's, starting over, whether it's, just job to job success. It's all of that. But let me just say, there's a moment in this episode where it all just clicks. Brandi said something that hit me square in the chest. It doesn't look like I thought it would, but I'm still living my dream. Let me say that again. It doesn't look like I thought it would, but I'm still living my dream. I just want to stop and say that's the whole D12 shot. That literally is the whole D12 shot because I have chills. If you're looking at me, I have chills thinking about her saying that again. It doesn't look like I thought it would, but I'm still living a dream. Whew. And if you've been grinding, showing up, putting your whole self into this work, and you're still wondering, is this it? Am I where I'm supposed to be? You are not alone. You are not alone. This career, what I know for sure, will ask more of you than you thought you signed up for. It will ask you to evolve. It will ask you to adjust. It will ask you to grieve your old expectations and then still dare to dream again, to get up the next morning and dream again. It will ask you to believe in the version of success that isn't always flashy, that isn't always the red carpet or the check mark next to your name that you put on social media, but instead, it's peace, it's purpose. It's that knowing that you're doing what you came here to do. Even when it looks different than what's on the shiny brochure or what you heard in a theater school, what you heard at college or something like that. Brandi reminded me, and hopefully you too, that we don't have to chase someone else's map. We get to build our own. We get to measure success and impact and joy and resilience. Oh, man. We get to measure success and impact. Oh, this is so good. Not just in bookings or in the billboards that we see up there. That's not it. So you listening to this right now, You may not be where you thought you would be. You may be doubting if it's still possible. But I need you to remember, like Brandi said, and like I've said before, you're not starting over. You're starting from experience. You've learned too much. You've lived too much. You've auditioned too much. You've grown too much to call this a reset, this moment, this starting over, this moment where you are right now, where you're listening to this. And that is a damn strong place to start from. So yeah, keep writing. So yeah, keep tapping. Sorry, keep taping. Keep taping. Keep self-taping. Keep reaching out. Even when the no's get so freaking loud. And keep holding on to your version of your dream, not somebody else's, your version of the dream. Because it's not too late. And it's not too small. And it's not over. It's not over because one person told you no. It's not over because 100 people told you no. You already know what I'm going to say after this. Don't quit. Don't get out of line. Borrow my faith in you. And I want you to hold the vision, not the circumstance. Thank you so much, Brandi, for coming on here and reminding me of all those things. Thank you so much, you, my listeners out there, for listening to this and really letting me get passionate about this D12 shot. I appreciate you, and I want to hear from you always. If this D12 shot, resonated with you, or if her episode resonated with you, please do me a favor and just share it. Please do me a favor and put it out there. Please continue to get this out there because you know I love doing this. I say it over and over and over and over again. So, thank you next month. Thank you next month. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.